Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This time what I'm going to be doing is making myself a little motorbike out of bits of metal and nuts and bolts. So firstly I'm going to start off with the petrol tank. So this is going to be the petrol tank. I've already cut this off, and I need to tack in the end this 8mm nut. I mean, it does actually go inside it sort of thing, but obviously drops down the bottom. And I'll be able to fix something off the end of that for the front of the motorbike. And then I've got a 10mm bolt here, which I'm going to put in the other end. And that'll act as the rear chassis. So what I'll do is I'll get that welded up. I need to squash the tube as well, because petrol tanks are not round, they're oval. So I'll get that far and I'll be back with you shortly. Right, there we go. I've got that nut tacked in that end, and I've got the bolt tacked in this end. Now I've actually squashed the tube as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fully weld the ends on this end, and then grind it all up so it's a little bit smoother, so it looks more like a petrol tank than just a bit of squashed tube. So I'll get that sorted out and I'll be back with you. Right, I've got that welded up, and I've ground it up and cleaned it up so it looks nice and neat and tidy. So there we go, that's that bit. What I've got is I've got a couple of 20mm nuts which I'm going to use as wheels. So this one will go sort of roughly around about there, and this one I'm going to use as a front end, but I haven't quite thought of how I'm going to do the front end yet. But that 8mm nut that I welded into the end of the chassis there, I found this domed-headed bolt, which I'm going to screw into the end, so that'll act as a headlight. So I'll get that assembled and the back wheel tacked in, and we'll be back with you as soon as I've finished that. Right, so I've got that nut tacked on the back there to act as back wheel. I've also screwed in that bolt so it looks like a headlight. Now for the forks, for the front forks here, what I'm thinking of is if I cut down one of these U-bolts, that'll sort of like that'll be nearly there for a set of front forks. So what I'll do is I'll cut that up, or this U-bolt up anyway. I'll cut that U-bolt up and we'll get that sorted. Right, there we go. The idea of the rule is to keep the two nuts faces sitting level, because obviously I want it to stand up on its own. I don't need a base plate for it. I've cut the centre out of the U-bolt as well, because obviously it wasn't the right width, so this is the other side one. So what I'll do is I'll get this welded together, or tacked together, and as soon as I've done that, I'll be back with you. Right, there we go, that's one side done. Now I just need to flip it over, and I'll get this with the fork leg welded in. So I need to put that roughly around about there, and I'll tack it from the back. So, and then a bit at the top here. Right, there we go. There, it even stands up on it on its own. So right, I've now got to think about a seat and an engine and handlebars. So I'll get a little bit of think on that, and I'll be back with you. Right, welcome back. I've decided now what I'm going to do for a seat. I'm going to get these two wing nuts. I'm going to cut them in half and then sort of like weld them together, and that'll act as a seat. These are going to be my handlebars, so they'll go on the top, something like that. And this is going to be my engine. I'm going to weld two of those together and then cut these down, and they'll act as like a little cylinder with a little cylinder head on it. So what I'm going to do, I've got to get into that. I've got to cut everything down and get it all tacked up. And as soon as I've got that sorted, I'll be back with you. So there we go, that's the engine done. I've ground it up, I've given it a wide brushing so it looks a bit neater. So that's ready to go in the frame. And if you remember, I was going to use two of these wing nuts, cut them in half, weld them together and use that as a seat. So I've already done that. So what I'm going to do now is get these two tacked onto the frame, and we'll see where we go from there. There we go, that's the engine and seat tacked on. But I'm not actually happy with that seat now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that off, and I'm going to do something else, so I'll get that cut off. I've got that old seat cut off now, so what I've got a bit of flat bar here, which I'm going to actually make a seat. I'm going to sit that on there and then just bend it up at the back here and I might even actually use it, a part of it, as a rear mudguard. So what I'll do is I'll get a bit of this cut off, sort of like, where are we? We're gonna be about there somewhere, so it needs a bit of a bend there, and then we'll cut a bit off. So I'll really just bend it up. Give it a bit of that. Something like that. And it's going to sit there, so I'll probably need to bend it a bit more. So I'll bend it a bit more. I'm going to have to cut a little bit off the end here, so I'll get that bit sorted out and get it radiused off and ready to tack on. Well, that's the seat and the rear mudguard done now, so I'm going to get these tacked on, and we'll have a look, see what she looks like. Well, that's the seat and the rear mudguard on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind them up and give it a bit of a wire brush so it gets out all that discolouring and what have you. And then I've got to look at something to come in here, because it looks a bit bare there at the minute. So I'm going to think about that one and see what we can put in there. Right, well, that space behind the engine, I've filled it in with a bent nail, of all things. So I've just tacked it to the bottom of the engine there, and that's it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it that, because if I do any more to it, it's going to be a bit overkill. So there we go. That is the motorbike all done and finished. So what I'm going to do is leave it there. Please like my page and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Right, there we go. That's it tacked in now. I've got that bit. Oh, ouch, it's hot. Well, that little void I had underneath beyond the engine. What's a engine?